All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Appreciate those of you that were able to make it out. Welcome to the Fireside Chat. So we're doing these on the third Thursday of every month. And this is an opportunity for us to really talk to like engaged builders, entrepreneurs, people that are just adding beauty and value to our city. Something that we know that you're doing. We're here with Dennis Amadeus tonight. We'll introduce him here and kind of we're going to get into a little chat. But I wanted to just frame this a little bit. The hope for this series is really for us to meet neighbors, active, engaged citizens, people that are doing meaningful things, whether in the art space, the entrepreneurship space, the civic, political space, some of them in systems, some of them outside of our systems. But we're realizing that like there's a lot of folks in our city that are worth knowing their stories, listening to, hearing from, and we want to create a platform where we can hear these stories, record these stories. And so I want to go ahead and jump into this. So Dennis and I have known each other for quite a long time. We were actually just up here chatting for a little bit, trying to figure out when that was, and it was just way back. That's all we know, like way back.
I want to say maybe 2013.
At least. I want to say like 8. I want to say 08 or something, but like it was a little bit. So I'm going to run through. I got some bulleted stuff as like a way of intro, but then I'll let you kind of. I have some questions to navigate through the night, but I want to just do like a Dennis is. So he is an artist and he is a teaching artist. He's a spoken word artist, poet, has been an activist and a community organizer, a writer, an event planner. Even tonight as we were talking about the event, he's like got pointers. He's like, I know how to run an event. And at a very deep level, I've always known him to be like a mentor to young people. Really just a good role model and guide and mentor. A business owner multiple times, so an entrepreneur, multiple businesses. We'll get into probably a little bit of those.
You make it sound good, John.
Currently with Grow House with Curtis Davis, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of the Grow House collective. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you go ahead and just flesh out. Is there anything else in your kind of intro? And then we'll just kind of start digging in.
No, I think you hit everything. I forget sometimes that I run myself as a business, as a teaching artist. So You're right. It is. I always forget multiple business owner. Technically, yes, that is true. We run and gun so much that we forget about these things sometimes. And it's funny because I still struggle with like, I'll be around other business owners actively owning and operating a business for multiple years and be like, maybe I'll be like them one day. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, sir, you've been doing it for like 3 years now. But yeah, I think that those are the big points what you said. I don't know if I'm so much an activist anymore. Now I just try to live out the values I believe in more than just like telling everybody else what to do, which is important too. But I'm a little bit older, like that. So.
It's funny because when we were trying to figure out where we knew each other from, I actually was asking him, is it from some of those activist days? Because he and I were in a lot of the same spaces. Yep. And I would say something very similar, and yet I also would say, no, I don't know, I don't want to put this on you, but I'll be like, no, it still is a form of activism. But I'm not out doing this anymore.
Right.
But I do consider like the work as direct action. It's like we want to, everything that we're doing is a sit-in, everything that we're doing is a demonstration. But our march is a bike shop. Our march is a food distribution. Our march is right.
Yeah, working with the kids, and not just that, but the things that we're not posting on social media, right? The people in our neighborhood that we need to help, and the young people that may be struggling, and there's just so many situations that could pop up every day where it's like, yo, this is an opportunity for me to live out my real value, right? And rather than just, like you said, go out and try to tell everybody else what to do when there's people right around us that need our help all the time, you know what I'm saying?
Man, so one of the things you talk about talking to a business owner and be like, one day maybe I'll be like that. Yeah. But the reality is, I even know people that would talk to you and be like, man, I hope one day I could be like that. And actually one of the reasons that I want to have these fireside chats is actually talking to people that I do know people look up to and go, man, how could I ever do this? And one of the things that I think is important for us to be able to do is to kind of tell our story a little bit and actually be humanized where everyone here can go, no, I am like you in some ways. And there are ways that I can add beauty and value to the world too, right? And so I was just thinking about I've heard your poetry over the years. I was jamming it on Spotify earlier. By the way, you can look him up on Spotify. Yeah. Some good tracks on there. But in your poetry, you really you have a real authenticity, and you dig into a lot of your own background check, for example. But Death of Superman is a beautiful like exploration of what I can only imagine was a deep and painful, formative season in your life. You talk about pain, you talk about getting in trouble, you talk about growing up and where you grow up and early struggles with identity and poverty. And being sentenced to 5 years waiting on the bus. And so I know these stories span across all of your life, but I wanted to begin by digging into your adolescence and your childhood a little bit, because I do think this is helpful as people listen to go, you know, I have a childhood, I have shared experiences. And could you just tell us a little bit about growing up?
So I grew up in what I like to say this funnily, but I grew up on like a small black street in a small white town, right, in upstate New York. And the reason that I say that is because I feel like the racial dynamics of the history of the town, they created a situation where there was multiple families, right, through the generations that kind of relied on each other for their own protection and defense and stuff like that. And so growing up where I grew up on Bruce Street, New York, it really gave me this really powerful, lived every single day example of what community looks like in action. Not perfect in any way, right? There's a lot of things that I suffer with, but we all do, right? That's how.
Yeah, what is perfect, right? Yeah.
But as far in the general sense, I've never, like, to this day, I have not seen community like that, right? I grew up in a place where we were outside with our cousins and people, none of them were blood related, but they're like, these are people that I considered cousins and family and things like that. Because I came from Germany, I came from another country. So
you were born in Germany?
I'm a German citizen, yeah.
Okay.
Technically, right now I am. I don't have dual citizenship.
Military?
Yeah, my stepfather was in the military.
Okay.
He was stationed Ramstein Air Base. And then my mom met him while he was in Germany, and then we moved to America, where my dad grew up on Port Jervis.
Now, because you were military, sorry to but
no,
that's fascinating.
You're good.
So you spoke English because military base? Did you also speak German?
Well, German was my original first language. I think English I started picking up, I think around it was so long ago. I moved here when I was 5. As you could tell, I sound very Americanized, you know what I mean? I moved here when I was 5, so I don't know when I won't say I lost it because I'm regaining it back. I'm like relearning German now, but I feel like I can't remember when English started really creeping in. We did live in England for a year before we came here, so I'll just say it starts there for the sake of.
So when you got to New York when you were 5?
When I was 5, yeah.
So that's like what, is that like beginning school? Is that like second grade, third grade?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten. See, I don't even know like what.
So I went to kindergarten in New York and everything. And again, not New York City. We were about 2 hours away from New York City, so we got a lot of like people from the city, and like it was close enough where we could be there pretty regularly when we got older. But yeah. So I think what was the question again?
Tell me your story. But I'm I'm just like.
But no. Got to Port Jervis when I was 5, and then just grew up there, again, in this very close, tight-knit community. One of the things I like about the street that I grew up in, everybody owned their houses, you know what I'm saying? When people passed away, it wasn't a change of scenery, it just moved on to the next person
generation.
In the family, you know what I mean? Things like that. Now, unfortunately, it's not like that anymore because all our generation, and I think this is probably universal across the country, you know, with internet and the ability to travel and go out and leave, and most of us left.
Nobody stayed.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And so, but people have gone back now and things like that. So anyway, all that to say, but we grew up where we could play outside with our cousins until 1 a.m. Our community was incredibly safe. It was incredibly looked over, protected. When my parents they got into divorce, and you know it got really bad there for a while. Once I got into high school, and we slid into poverty, my dad stopped working, became super depressed. You know, that was when all the poverty things started really hitting, food insecurity, stuff like that. Even with all that going on in the home, I never was in danger of starving to death. I was, the people around me saw what was happening. They could only do so much because my dad was incredibly prideful, but they helped every way they could, and that is, I think, why I believe so much in community today, right? I don't want to rely on governments. I don't want to rely on systems. I don't want to rely on anything but the people around us that live with us every single day, because that's how it should be. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes. Yes, amen. Like, that's what I look at as well, and why, like, probably you're one of the people that jumped out to us as, like, the right thread, the right flavor, the people that we want to, like, we see you, even if we're not in the day-to-day together, we're like, these are our people. And I think this is a big part of it. It's like taking responsibility for your own block, taking responsibility for the condition of your own city, taking responsibility for the youth around you, and not expecting some outside agency or outside force or whatever. It's like waiting on someone else to come save the day. But to go, no, we got to pick up and build. And that's something that I've seen you do year after year after year after year. Been wildly impressed with that. How much of that do you think is out of the roots of these kind of early days? Like, how much do you think that began to take shape in your youth?
I think all of it did. Again, like I obviously I didn't learn about a lot of the activism principles that I have, and like, you know, revolutionary rhetoric and stuff like that. That was all after I left, and I found out myself as a person, as an individual in Tampa. You know what I'm saying?
When did you come to Tampa?
Why? When? Oh, I'm like, why?
I know why.
Yeah. Well, I came to Tampa in 2012, I think.
Yeah.
No, 2009. I came in 2009. 2012 is when I started poetry.
So we didn't meet in 2008 then. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
2009 is when I first got here. I didn't get into poetry until 2012. That's why I feel like it was either from that point on where we must have met.
Now, were you not writing at all?
No, I always wrote my whole life, actually, but it was never public. I wrote raps and stuff to express myself. Again, didn't have the belief that I could ever make anything out of it. That's the other part of my hometown, because it was a small town. There wasn't a lot of arts, or, you know what I mean, pushing for that, or there was never any kind of like, I'm gonna be a rapper, and then people be like, oh, that's a good idea, let's help you.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they'd be like, terrible idea, don't ever say that to me again. You know what I'm saying? But and so we did rap, but it was for fun, you know what I mean? And to express myself. There were signs that I was really good at it early on. In 6th grade, I won an essay contest. I procrastinated on writing this essay. It was about what we thought about our school. In New York, you graduate from elementary school at 6th grade to middle school, right? So 6th grade, you're still in elementary school. I wrote, because I procrastinated, I just wrote, I didn't know what it was at the time, but now it's an acrostic poem, right? Where you put a word down and then you write a line of poetry for each letter.
From each letter? Yeah.
And so I put Sullivan Ave, right? That was the name of the school that it was on, and I just wrote a line. And
Do you remember it?
I don't remember it. Not at all. I wish I could find it somewhere, man. That'd be crazy. I feel like my mom might have kept it. She gave me a box of stuff before, she passed, so I might have to dig through that. It might actually be in there. But long story short is that was a sign. With that poem, I came in first place in the essay contest in 6th grade. Then, now I wasn't good at anything else in school because I had ADHD, diagnosed ADHD, not like, I think I might have it, but like I was actually diagnosed.
Is this not true of just every creative genius?
That's
or
what
whatever?
we ain't back outside. But yeah, so I wasn't doing well in school because, it just, I did good at parts that motivated me, that I enjoyed, right?
Yeah.
Reading, writing, social studies, things like that. I was good at. Math, not so much. Things that felt like work, I just didn't do as much. I did bare minimum. And again, I'm making this a long story, but
go for it, dude. We got time. That's what we're here for.
It was 8th grade. By 8th grade, no, 7th grade, middle school now, I was not doing good in any of my classes except for one section and one class, and that was English. And guess what section that was?
Writing.
The poetry section.
Oh, in poetry specifically.
Poetry section. We learned Robert Frost, which is everybody's first thing. And this is an ode to my mother. The reason I'm so good at understanding, breaking down literature is because she read to me since I could remember being alive as a baby. And then the moment I was able to, she made me read all the time.
Really?
So I was reading my entire life. And then once I got old enough, she let me choose what to read, but I always had to read something, And so I think when I read Robert Frost and we broke it down, I didn't know the word metaphor. I didn't know what that was, but I understood the concept of taking this and making it an analogy, I didn't know that word either, for something else. I just understood that concept. So when we broke it down, I got A+ for that whole week, A+, everything. Robert Frost, the poems that I write, the poems that I broke down, all the way across the board. Now here's what makes me mad. If I'm a teacher and I notice a kid who's getting D's everywhere else, and then suddenly he has a week of A+ for one subject, Don't you think that should be something you should push him towards, right? Or give him opportunities? That did not happen. They didn't. It was just like, oh, that's awesome. You got a good grade. Keep it up. And that was it. And, right? And nobody cared about the fact that that's what I was good at. And then move on to 8th grade. That was the teacher that was like, I did a poetry in that class. And she was like, and by then I was in the remedial English class. I was like the lower level. And she was the one that was like, yo, this is good. I wrote a poem. I do remember that one. It was a poem called Life. And it was a very simple poem. It was about somebody's taking a test and then they hand it in for a grade. And then after it gets graded, it gets crumpled up and thrown away, right? Simple metaphor for how life is. 8th grade, what do I really know? You know, that kind of thing. She loved it so much, she put it on the wall for the honors and the high-level English class kids to learn what poetry is, right? Now, she was a little left, right? So not a lot of people supported her, but she was a good person, I feel like, and a good teacher. But and so those were the times early on when I knew that I had a good. Those are the times early on when I knew that I had a good knack for writing and for poetry and creative writing. The final thing was, fast forward to 11th grade. We have in New York, it's called the Regions. Down here, it's called the FCAT, I think. Like the
yeah. Do we
whatever
still have that? We still do it? Okay, that sucks.
Yeah. So it's like long story short, these are the bare minimum tests that you have to pass to be able to graduate. Right?
Yep.
So they had one in New York called the Regents exam. And the English exam in 11th grade, it's just 4 opinion essays. That's it. That was the whole thing. Now,
so you crushed this?
Failed the class, bro. I was like, oh, I know exactly what they're looking for. Boom, killed it. Blah, 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 blah. Got an 85, right? Didn't get 100. But compared to my grade, which was 67 or something probably in the class, I killed it, right? My English teacher the next year, I heard this from another student, goes, yeah, I'm an incredible teacher at the Regents. Who would have thought Dennis Lemmerman would have got an 85 on the Regents of all people, but I helped him get there. Not at all. Not at all did she help me. That hurts me to this day here, man. I'm like, oh, she was nasty for that, but it's all right. But again, so there was moments early on that showed I was really good for it. Now let's fast forward all of that. I went to college, failed out of college, started getting arrested a bunch, really went nosedive down in life. And then Tampa, an opportunity came to Tampa. My ex at the time was coming to Tampa for culinary school, and I said, you know what, I'm going to. Now, my legal situation at the time was I was on probation. So I was not allowed to leave.
In New York?
In New York.
Yeah.
But I decided to leave anyways.
Can we just pause?
Yes,
what are we on probation for?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to be honest. I was on probation because I got in a fight with my father at the time, and I hit him with a glass bottle. So they charged me with assault with a deadly weapon, and some other charges that go along with that. And yeah.
So are you actively needing to check in with the PO?
I did at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so this weird thing happened too with the PO where I was trying to do it legally. I was like, can you transfer my probation? I'm going to go to school down in Florida and make my life better. And they did not allow it. And then the probation officer got some kind of sickness or illness. Like all of a sudden he wasn't there for 2 weeks and then he could not return to his job. So I was like, this is a great opportunity to get out of here. And I took off that week. Once I found that out, I was like, oh, there's going to be a new one. And I left. And it's funny because all my people from my street, they were like, yeah, some lady came and was asking about you in probation. You know what I mean? We're like, he took off. We don't know where he went. And so it was good timing because I imagine if you're brand new to a job and you have this brand new case that just disappears, eventually you're going to be like, this is taking up too much of my time. I got to deal with this other stuff. And I think that's what ended up happening. Plus, Florida is a commonwealth. So commonwealths, unless it's a felony or a federal offense, they don't deal with outside, they don't communicate outside with other jurisdictions. So I came to Florida and I got arrested here and I thought I was done. I'm like, oh, it's over. I'm getting
just sending me back.
Home. And they acted like it was my first arrest.
Never heard of you before.
Yeah. I was like, okay, we can do this, man. And then stupidly got arrested many more times in Florida. But that's how I got to Florida. Was I ended up kind of chasing my ex to come down here. I went to graphic design school and then failed out of graphic design school because it was a predatory loan school, Art Institute of Tampa. Have you heard about that?
Art Institute of Tampa. So I went to Tampa Technical Institute, which was it was like their competitor. I did the digital graphic art program.
That's what I did.
Outrageously expensive. And literally I could have just bought the programs and learned. Right. And their programs at Cork Express, what the
Do not pay over exorbitant prices for school if it has to do with art. You can just do it and
You
get
can
the
just do
experience
art.
that
You can
way.
just do art. Nobody's like,
just
where's
do
your
the
degree?
art. Do the art.
Where's your degree?
But yeah. So now I will say.
So you failed out, or no? I couldn't pay the bill.
I couldn't pay the bill. I didn't fail out. I swear to God. I was on my way to graduate. It was 3 years, but I was also using those loans to pay for my rent and stuff like that. So so I took too much out, and they're like, you don't have any more loans.
And these are actual student loans, like everyone takes, where you can't get out of them. And
yeah, exactly. Yep. But blessings recently, within the last month, because of how they went about it, though all those loans are getting exonerated.
Was there like a class action or something?
Yeah. It was going on for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, they got sued by a lot of people over multiple cities. And so now those loans are exonerated. They're even paying back people who paid off on those loans. And I did not. But but that was like $60K of loans that just got.
But then, by the way, we mentioned earlier that you have multiple businesses, and this is jumping around a little bit, but one of those was actually graphic arts.
Yeah, so that is, but that was never technically, I mean, I ran it and I did it for money. So I guess it was a business. I don't want to say it was, because I wasn't like an LLC or anything like that. But
you just took some money and made you a logo. Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, so you chase a girl down here. You go to this school that takes all your money.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, but so the school, you know what I mean? And now I'm like left high and dry, right? And I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life, man. I tried, you know what I mean? I tried to make it for the better.
By the way, I'm sorry, you're gonna make it for the better. This is where, so my next question is like your path, your career, your development, and I feel like we're transitioning into that, and I'm just gonna let you keep running rather than interrupting with the question, but I'm gonna interrupt with the transition, so continue.
Yeah. So I meet this guy, Mike Larry Draw. He's in the same exact, he's a rapper from New York. Check him out, he's phenomenal. He was down here in Tampa, and I meet him on the bus. We're both going to the Art Institute to use their computers, and we both got kicked out of the Art Institute. So we were like already like vibing.
You're just on Heartline. Well, you're just on Heart, getting off at the same stop.
Getting
What's
off
up,
at the
dude?
Art Institute,
Okay.
going in there, using their computers for whatever need, because they had all the highest level tech stuff. So, and then he was like, "Yo, I'm a rapper. I do this open mic at this spot called the Bubba House, over by USF. This was before Bubba was super popular. They were doing it early.
It's still gross.
Oh, I agree. I don't disagree.
It's so nasty. Go on.
But that spot was really cool. They were very community oriented. So we went there. Nobody was at the open mic. It would be me and Mike Larry Draw freestyle rapping for 2 hours in front of nobody. Right?
That sounds like a good time though. You know, that's how our open
it
mics
was a
are
good
going
time.
lately.
Very good.
By
time.
the way, first Saturday of every month. But go on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so eventually the owner of the place comes in. He's like, "Yo, you guys are really good. You know, I have an open mic tomorrow, and there's actually people there. So
People come to this one. You should come back. Come again."
So we did, and I wasn't comfortable rapping. I wasn't a rapper. It was easy to freestyle rap when nobody is in the audience, but I'm like, oh God, what am I gonna do? So I just went back into my book of poems, and I decided to do poems. And I went up there and I did some poems that I had written in like creative writing class and stuff. And they were a hit. And then there was a comedian there named Krishna Reddy. And he was like, have you ever heard of Poetry Slam? Slam poetry is competitive poetry. And I was like, nah, I didn't hear about it. He's like, yeah, it's like you can win money if you win. And I heard win money. I need money. So this is a great opportunity. But he was like, well, it's tomorrow. Why don't you go and check it out and see if you're about it? And then maybe you can compete later on. But I was like, nah, I'm competing tomorrow. And so I swear to you, I memorized 3 raps that I had, I had 2 poems that I memorized and 1 rap that I turned into a poem. I walked 2 hours to that venue on foot, trying to memorize those poems the whole entire walk. I got to that venue, performed in my first competitive poetry slam, packed house, right? First time being in poetry world, activism world, those kind of people. Never been around those kind of people before. I tied for first at my first ever poetry slam. And from that moment on, it wasn't just winning. It wasn't just winning. It was how much the community like surrounded me and was like, yo, you're amazing at this. John, I never in my life. I worked hard to be fairly mediocre at basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the farthest I've ever got at being amazing at something. I never heard nothing like that. And they were really honest about it. And they were like, people were like, we're doing a poetry slam team. And these people were like, we're doing this. And it was like, boom, all of a sudden, now mind you, I dropped out of school. I don't have no job. I said, I'm doing this forever. And from that point on, I wrote, for the next 2 years, I wrote every single day of my life. I wrote every single day. I studied poetry. I read so many poetry books, studied poets. I went to every single open mic that I could. I'm talking 3-4 open mics a week. You know what I'm saying?
What year is this?
This is 2012.
Okay.
January 2012 is when I went to that poetry slam. And that was the moment that my life changed. And literally, I can go through a million other things, but that was the beginning. And when I tell you, everything that I have in my life today has been because of my dedication and love for that craft and that art form, including my wife.
Say more about that.
Well, we met at a poetry show, and she's also a poet. And so she was like impressed by my poetry, that opened the door to talk and stuff like that. Yeah.
Poetry got me and my wife.
Yeah, man, bro. But that is the reason why I want to bring it to the world. That's the reason why Grow House exists. That's the reason why I work with young people. That's the reason I teach poetry in juvenile detention centers and group homes and homeless shelters, because these kids need to know you have the power to write your future and it actually comes through. I did it. Waiting on the bus, background check. All those things, no longer issues. I've overcome them, fought past them, and I wrote about it first, and I came and did it. And that's what I want to teach these kids all the time. You have the power to take your experiences, to take your trauma, to take the things that happen to you, and you get to define what that means for you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've heard you say a lot, and I think you're getting at it right here, and so, but I feel like there's more to double click on. You've talked about like the power of poetry, the power of the word. And even now, it's like you have the power. There's something in each of us that has the ability to articulate and to write something, like to author something, not just a poem, but a path. Mm-hmm. You talk about like destiny, having like destination in mind. And I was reflecting earlier, actually, like yesterday.
You really listen to my poetry.
Oh, I've listened to your poetry, man. But like,
that's love.
But like thinking about, I feel like I don't even know where this came from, but yesterday I was thinking about the idea that visionaries and prophets don't necessarily see the future as much as they articulate a path forward. So I think of like a Dr. King that goes, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen what's coming, but it's actually a way to author the future. It's actually a way to lean into and build out of their action and their word. And so I just wanted to ask you to like say more about the power of the word, the power. This expression, the power of the poetry, really stuck out to me.
Yeah, no. So that's something I actually really strongly believe in. It's hard to articulate because it's something that's not. I don't think you can't prove it, right?
It's like a religious statement. It's like a religious statement. I mean, like genuinely, we were talking like before we started about like faith and things like that. But like, there's actually something in what you're saying that is like, but it resonates in a way that I go, that's true.
Yeah, right. And
it's true. It's beautiful.
Our lived
it's powerful.
Experience is undeniable, right? But yeah. So I truly believe that the thoughts and things and visions and stuff that we have in our head, we have the full power and potential to make that come true in our life. Now, we can't wish it and it appears, right? There's something in between those two steps.
Like action?
Like action, right. Mm-hmm. That has to happen. And it's like, like everything that we have in this world started with a vision that was in somebody's mind that nobody else saw but that one person. And now it's created, and now the whole world knows what it is because one person had a vision for it and did the work to make it come through, whatever that work looks like, right? And I just think that's real. And you can do that with your own personal life and the direction of how you do things. The difference is you have to believe and you have to be willing to push. You know what I mean? You have to be willing to really, what do they say? The universe is going to test you to see if you really want something. You know what I'm saying? That you're going to face hardships. Getting through those hardships and still staying on the focus of what you want to do is what proves, is like the grease that moves the wheel of manifestation forward, right? Like you have to fucking. Oh, I'm reading.
You're good.
Oh, okay.
You have to fucking go.
You have to fucking. You have to suffer for it. I hate to say it, and when you break out through the other side, all of a sudden things are just gonna pour in your lap, and you're gonna be like, "Where's all this coming from?" It's like it comes from all that. Because you stayed true and pushed through, even when people turned their back on you, even when you were, and I'm talking about myself, even when you were broke and living on people's couches and riding the bus, even when I had no car and I had to ride the bus across the city to go to every single open mic, right? On the bus, writing my poems, not caring because I wanted to get to those mics, get on that stage and tell the people what I wanted to tell them, you know what I mean? And so through all of that, here I am, right? Here I am today. And I struggle today like any other human being does, right? There's never enough money in the world to satisfy us. There's always future, always bigger. But my God, when I look at my life objectively, I single-handedly created the life around me for myself based off of my words, my action, and my talents. And I think there's something to be said about that. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
You know
dude,
what
I'm proud of you, man. And I think that's such a beautiful demonstration of like, well, but one, like the kind of like creation that takes place. Like I just think of how and I actually would say like at some fundamental level, maybe this is a theological position. Like I mean, you know, you're familiar with like stories like Genesis, like he spoke creation into being, and there's something like and we're in that image of a creator. Like at some level, I think our core identity is that of creator, and there is something about what we are speaking.
That's why, as humans, we have the abilities that we do over other animals. You know what I mean? In the natural sense, even when we take out the religious concept, we have the ability to create, right? We have the ability to create things that do not exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have literally the ability to think about a problem, figure out a solution in our head, and then actively put the elements around us together to create a new thing. You know what I mean? Like, no other thing can do that. And I feel like when you talk about God, that's what God does. God creates. So yes, we are made in the image of God in our ability to create. You know what I'm saying? That is why we're made in the image, in my personal view.
No, I love that. So these might be going out. Let's see. Well, it doesn't matter. They're all right. So
And creation is not just creating art either, right? It's all kinds of things. Building a building, coming up with a plan, coming up with lesson plans for people. You know, all the different, even in combat, and like I'm not saying go out and fight, but even, you know, there's a reason it's called the art of combat, you know what I'm saying? Because there is creation in all of that, right? And so, yeah.
So I have some questions I want to ask you that like we'll bang through, but I want to talk about what you have created with Grow House and the work you're doing with kids. You're like part of what you were saying as I got into the like power of the word is like, that's why I built this. That's why I do this. Yeah. But I want to like avoid the curse of knowledge that I know what you do and like tell everybody like what it is that you're working on, what it is that you do, what it is that your current kind of landscape and project and business actually looks like.
So yeah, we have Grow House. Tampa is kind of the real big project. Individually, I'm always trying to perform, be a host, an MC, get out in the world, teach kids, teach poetry in whatever capacity that looks like. But Grow House is the main project right now. Grow House is my ability to create a community centered around this art form in a way that I think it should be. I think a lot of different people take art forms for different reasons, but one thing I know about poetry is it's an art form of authenticity. You gotta be honest, you gotta be real. I don't like the idea that if a group of people are practicing poetry together, then they all come out and then they all sound the same. They have the same cadence or the same style. Or even worse, you have people writing poetry and they're trying to sound like the poets they heard on Button Poetry or Right About Now or the things they sound online. Not realizing the reason those poems are so great is because that person has found the highest level of their authentic voice, of being themselves, right? And so I wanted to create an environment that says, this is about your story. How can you master telling your story through your unique, individual, authentic voice, regardless of how traumatic, untraumatic, rich, poor, race, class, whatever it is? What is your authentic, real story, your real perspective of the world, and how can you articulate that and put that in the world? And then on top of that is the business aspect of it. How can we help artists get better at their craft, actually get on stages, get paid to be on those stages, deliver quality artwork, quality performances where people don't feel bad about paying for what they're seeing on stage, and all of those values. And then, of course, community gatherings, community togetherness, hitting any resource we can, using our talents and abilities to help expand messages of organizations that are doing great work in the city. All of those things combined. With Grow House, I get to do all of that together. You know what I mean? And then I have people who love it. I got Curtis Davis, and now we've grown from just me and Curtis to 9 people who are willing to help us push this vision in this company into where it is, you know? And all of them have grown exponentially as artists and as poets since they started with us.
You got a spot here in Newport now.
We do. Down here at the Crest building, right? Yo, who would have thought? Bro, me and Curtis were on the top of, I'm probably in trouble, but we were on top of the building the other day, man, and we were like watching over Ebor and like, this is what we dreamed about when we first started this. We wanted a spot in Ybor. We wanted to have these moments where we can go to Ybor, never have to worry about where we need to go because we could just go to our spot, make beautiful connections down here with all of this great organizations and businesses and artists and culture and movement makers, and bring poetry to a place that I love. And we really are living that dream. Now, I still wish we were making more money. That's always the thing, right? Especially as a business. But my God, sometimes I gotta look around and be like, I can't believe that we actually made this happen. You know what I mean?
So one of the things that you said about like people imitating those that have gone before them and that everybody's sounding like someone that's gone before them. So one of the things I've thought about, because this has been like not just in poetry, but in life, like we all know this, like whether it's a dance or whether it's like there's a voice or how you mimic maybe someone you look up to, there's a reality to that. And I actually do, so on the positive side, and I'm just curious what you think about this. I've reflected on that. And I think on the positive side, because I know that I've done that. Like I look back at my life and I'm like, oh, I like aspired to be like somebody, and I started to like almost try to channel the spirit I saw in them, the thing that I saw in them. And I started wondering like, well, at some level, I do think that's how we learn. Like I think children learn like there's a dance and you try to mimic the movements of the other person, and then eventually you can find your voice, right? Yeah. But I'm curious, like at a developmental level, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but it just as you were saying that, I'm wondering like, what do you make of the value of imitation? I actually think you're right in the whole like counterfeit nature art of an artist trying like derivative works and things like that, and not finding your own voice or being authentic or true to that. Right. And yet at the earliest stages, like when you work with young people, there is a role of going like, watch how I do this. And like,
all right. So there's two parts of it, right? There's the art as an expression, right? Art as a tool for authenticity and expression, and then there's the art as a career path, right? Or some like an identity path, or something where you're like, this is who I am. I am a poet. I am gonna work to write and put out content, or not content, but put out books and put out albums and put out poems and perform. There's two things. When I teach the kids, it's not what they sound like. For the kids, it's about how can I get you to express your story authentically, right? And look at it in a creative lens and give you tools where if it's too vulnerable or it's too messy, you can cover it up a little bit, right? With some fancy metaphors, with some fancy analogies, with some fancy writing, poetic devices, you know what I mean? That's always when I'm working with kids. I'm never like looking for the next poet that I can help cultivate, right? If an opportunity comes up, and they do, many of the young kids are like, some of them, well, not many, but some of them are like, yo, I want to do this. That's a different story. Now we're going to have a different conversation.
Are any of the people in the collective people that came up as kids that you worked with?
Jamie Dawson. So she was in the Heard 'Em Say youth program. And I was a coach.
You still do that, right?
Yeah. Yep. We do that at the Crest Building as well. We're with Heard 'Em Say.
Okay.
Yeah, there. Jamie Dawson came up, and I think she's probably the only one. But
that's awesome, though.
But yeah, but she's also she's incredible. She was, like I said, in a poetry program though. She's a little different than some of the other kids I work with who are coming from the ground up. You know what I mean? She was kind of made for it. When I met her, I'm like, oh, you're incredible. Like, you know what I mean? She took off with it. She got a full ride scholarship to University of Wisconsin.
Seriously?
For her poetry. Yep.
Wow. Yeah. But that was someone you saw like when you were young. You were like, you got a gift. Like there's something 100%. There. Yeah, you came with raw materials.
Easily. And that's the other part too, is like there's certain aspects. Again, we're talking career path, not just expression. Everybody is free and able and should write poetry and create art to express themselves in whatever capacity that is without being gatekept or whatever we want to call it, right? I got a whole nother perspective about gatekeepers, but that's not here or there. But on the other side, if you want to make this a career, and you want to make it lucrative, or not lucrative because you're not going to be rich off poetry, but if you want to make it like this is what I do for my life, now we have to start talking about what is your story? What is the thing you're going to give to the world that they can't find nowhere else, right? Because that is what's going to get people to want to book you, to want to hire you to write stuff for them, to, you know what I mean? You're going to find your direct niche of the type of people that want to rock with you. You know what I'm saying? Like then now we're having a different conversation. Because if you sound like somebody else, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing an art your disservice, and at least if you sound like somebody else because like you're following a model, right? Some people just sound like each other. You know what I mean? People come from same environments or whatever. But For the most part, like, you have to be authentic even as a career, right? That's the kicker. People like, I'm just gonna crank out content. Like, but if you're not making an impact, nobody's gonna care. If you're not making an impact, and you make an impact by being real, right? When you connect with something, when you're vulnerable enough where somebody's like, damn, I went through that too, dog. You know what I'm saying? Or, wow, even if they didn't, like, what an incredible story to give hope and inspiration. But if it's not real, I'm not gonna say they have a radar for it, but in our spirits, we know. You know what I'm saying? And so then you become just, oh yeah, that was the poet, to, yo, did you hear that dude? When he talked about, oh my God, bro, like, you know, a tangible change in somebody's spirit or energy or emotions, you know what I mean? Then now, and you only get that, again, I feel like I'm harping on the same thing. You only get that from my experience from being authentic. That's the only way to do it.
So I have a list of questions that I kind of want to ask everybody that we talk to. And so by way of transitioning to those, if you're willing, we've talked a lot about being a poet and the power of the word and like the authentic kind of expression of things. Is there a poem that you'd be willing to share that we could use as a way to transition into some bulleted out questions?
I have a poem that's right on the line of like manifestation and all of that power of the word, but I do it so much. You still want me to rock that one?
Whatever you want, man.
It's kind of long, too. You got 3 minutes?
Whatever you want.
All right. So in the beginning, I know you've heard, in the beginning was the word, right?
I heard.
But I think it goes a little bit deeper. I believe after the word comes an idea. After the idea comes the action. And then after the action comes the creation. So every single new creation begins with a word. Agreed?
Let's go.
According to that line of thinking, right? Including our days. Like when we first wake up, what's the first things that our minds say? Maybe it's how much you don't want to go to work. Maybe it's broke. Maybe it's pain. Maybe it's no hope. We live in a world that works every moment of every single day trying to tell us what our first word is going to be. Because advertisements are everywhere. Bus ads, billboards, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, preachers, teachers, MCs, poets, your own family and friends are all buying up space in your most important estate, but you are the only one that has to actually live there. So if you said to yourself right now in your own mind, I am great, you would be able to speak, but you wouldn't be using your physical mouth. If I asked you to picture the most beautiful place that you've ever seen, filled with the greenest grass and the bluest streams, you'd be able to see it, but you wouldn't be using your physical eyes. That is your beginning. In the beginning was the word. And today that hasn't changed. We just have a timeline of existence that manifested a lot of people's words into this physical plane, creating a world with planes, skyscrapers, cell phones, cryptocurrency, VR, artificial hearts, more technology than we have ever dreamed. That all first started with somebody's vision that was never physically seen. I am great. According to the Bible, it says that the I am is God. So if I am whatever I am saying I am, and I am is God, then I am a God is redundant. But I am great is a reminder. And when you speak those words out loud, the first ears to hear it are the great I am inside you. The power of the word is how we are made in God's image because it's our ability to create. And it's in that image where we all relate. I am great. If we keep telling ourselves this every day, eventually it'll permeate into everything you make, defining what you are, writing the narrative to your story, filling the book of your life with the actual words you are saying. Each sentence is a verse. Each conversation is a page, whether with your physical mouth or a million minds away in that secret place where only you can speak with no sound, hear with no ears, see with no eyes. That is where vision lies, where prayers live, where our purest connection to the universe is. Believe in the power of your word from start to finish, from Genesis to Revelation, from mind to manifestation. They are the force that builds all things into being or drags them back down into death. Just think about how easy it is to believe somebody when they tell you that they love you, but every action speaks differently. Or just think about the moment that you start to badmouth somebody, suddenly you find yourself in a room with them to prove it. Or just think about this very poem. How many images have you created from the words that I'm saying? We're listening to observe. While I try to make I am great the loudest sound that you've ever heard. In the beginning was the word. So who is writing yours? Thank you.
It's like phenomenal.
Man, see, this is how you know, like you're like we can all go play basketball, but we can't all be LeBron, right? Like some people just they got it, they got that gift. So
I tried to play basketball. So I agree with that statement.
and
Only because
I'm gonna do poetry.
yeah, exactly. I still play a little ball, but you know what I mean? Street ball is where my talents are.
Yeah, I don't. So all right, I want to ask because many people try to do things like people listening. Like, yo, I want to try something. I want to build something. And one of the things I don't think maybe we share enough, and I could be wrong, but like, can you tell us about something along the way, whether it's a business or something you've been trying to do in life, business, whatever, something that blew up in your face?
Ooh, oh my goodness, man. All right, do I want to get into this huge? Because immediately something already came to my head, and it was what we were talking about earlier, man. It was putting people and organizations on a pedestal, you know what I mean? And not putting myself first in a way where it was like not protecting myself, you know what I'm saying? I had a close relationship with a poet who had a huge influence over my life. And just in general, like the poetry community and nationally was just somewhere where I was like, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be important, feel important. This is where I want to, have a name for myself. I want these poets to love me. I want these poets to respect my writing and my craft. And my biggest regret is that I decided to make that a part of my goal rather than continuing to be authentic. I was still always authentic in my writing and delivery, but rather than focusing on the people in the world, right, that benefit from my art, instead I forced myself into this small box and tried to get this small group of people all traumatized, all, like messed up, because that's how artists are, unfortunately. And I got a lot of influence and clout, and they loved me, and I was a great person there. And then the reality hit. Positions of power started being doled out. We made a pitch to bring this huge national festival to Tampa. I was in there making the pitch. I created the pitch, right, with somebody. Then this other person came around and sneak talked into everybody's ear, and now all of a sudden they started making it happen, and I'm not involved in none of the planning, none of the board, none of the anything, man. And then I look back on my relationship with this person, and it just dawned on me how much I put in this, how much I allowed this person to influence my decisions and my life, and not just them, but the community, what they would think of me. I turned my back on people that I loved, people who looked out for me, people that I knew personally because of what the community believed, right? And I knew this person. And so I would say that is the biggest thing, the regret. That's the reason I created Grow House, was because I wanted to create a place where we can love poetry for real. And it could be about the art and about supporting each other and not about all the bullshit that I had to go through, unfortunately, to realize what I'm telling you right now. So I say the biggest thing that blew up in my face was trying to get in with people who did respect me, and they did, you know what I'm saying? But like, my work wasn't there. My work isn't to impress other poets. My work is to make a change in my communities and the world around me. My work is to tell the world my story and let people who relate, the ripple effect of positivity and growth and development. And I feel like I closed so much of myself in, you know what I mean? I killed so much of my potential opportunity to just be an incredible force in the world because I was so worried what other people would think about me.
So I'm going to take a stab at giving that back to you in a lens that as what I'm hearing, and I want you to tell me if this is right. So what I hear in that is taking my eyes off of the craft, the work, the process, and moving them towards some concept of success.
Yep. Ooh, that's a great way to put it.
Right?
And at the time, it was
so I think in terms of success rather than the work.
Yep.
And serving success rather than serving the work itself.
Yep. No, that's a good way to put it. And now I was always doing the work because I believe very strongly in doing the work in all aspects of life. I was always teaching. I was always trying to do right in the community. But I feel like I could have made a bigger impact for myself, and I could have made it a little bit farther had I just focused on the work.
What are 2 or 3 books that you would say that all of us should read?
Oh, 2 or 3. Number 1, Siddhartha. Siddhartha. Micah, have you read Siddhartha?
Oh, for sure. Like 3 times, yeah. Well, 3, a lot.
Bruh, man, oh man. That book changed my perspective about so much. My God, do I love that book. And it's cool. It was written by German man. So
What's his name?
Herman Hesse.
Okay, I didn't know he was German. Yeah, it's called Hesh. That's how you
I
pronounce it.
think it's Hesse.
I want to say
Hesse,
Hesse, but I don't know.
Hesse, something like that. But yeah. So, but anyways, that book was just so profound. Like I told you, I was struggling with my faith, and that book gave me a safe, like, alternative. I don't know how to explain that.
Do you know why?
Because it was so beautifully because it talked about the totality of a man's life. And it talked about what I was going through, right? This man put his all into one religion, right? And then this religion ain't it. Then he put his all into the next one. Man, this ain't it. Then he said, you know what? It's not about religion. It's about the world. It's about getting his money. Then he put his all into that. Took him 50 years, but he found out this ain't it either. You know what I'm saying? And then he's an old man. I'm giving y'all the book away, but
It's a good book.
he's an old man at the end of his life, has a son who did the same thing as him and took off and disappeared and found all the answers helping people cross a river. You know what I'm saying? And talking about that river. And that's like the last chapter is like this ode to this river, right? And it's just, I love how it's like, it takes it out of these beliefs and it brings it to what is actually physically around us, right? That is the thing that brought this man peace, right? Not all this chasing and traveling and trying to find the right religion. And a lot of people say that's a book about Buddhism, but I don't think it's solely about Buddhism.
It's just because it's called Siddhartha.
What happened?
It's because it's called Siddhartha. That's why they think that, right?
Oh.
That's the Buddha. The Buddha was a dude named Siddhartha.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I got you. Okay, that was the name. Okay, I get that. But he talks about the Buddha, like he tries to be like the Buddha in,
Right.
That's one of his spiritual journeys, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, I do think he ended in Buddhism in some fashion. But anyways, that was a great book. You said 2 to 3, but I always tell that book because I think anybody who's struggling with faith or religion, read that book.
By the way, it's totally fine if I say 2 or 3 and you're like, no, there's this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
What's the next one? I mean, the next one that changed my life, but I don't know if it's because of everybody. I read this book called Hope on a Tightrope by Cornel
West.
Oh, yeah, bro. And that was the next one because that book articulated all the things that I felt about community struggles. That was the first book I read. And then through Cornel West, I found Black Panther Party because he talked about the Black Panthers in that book. And then I found Huey Newton, Revolutionary Suicide.
Dude, that book just forever shaped me.
That also that was radical as hell after that. I wonder why. But no, but yeah, but yeah, so.
Well, that's 3. That's 3 then. So you got Hope on a Tightrope, you got Siddhartha, and you got Revolutionary Suicide.
I would say those are 3, probably the most influential 3 when I started
revolutionary
this
as hell
journey.
after that. All right, so the most innovative or inspiring person that you've ever met or read about?
Oh my God, these questions are crazy. I got to think about this one. Innovative or inspiring person that I've ever met or read about. It's a controversial answer because I actually don't like him as a person.
That's okay.
No, let me make a better answer. There's just one thing. All right, I'm going to say one thing.
like
and then I'm going to give y'all a better answer. Kanye West did one thing that I was like, yo, that was gangster. He wanted to be a part of Paris fashion culture, right? They blackballed him, right? He was like, all right, bet. He makes holy shirts and holy, like little homeless clothes popular. He sells these shirts for $500-$600, holes and stained. And it becomes a hit across the world. Guess who's invited to Paris Fashion Week next week? Kanye West. Now, when I talk about taking your own power, right, and doing it anyways, and doing it great, and using that genius, when I heard that story, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? Now, I do not condone all of his other antics. I don't know if he's, I don't know the man.
Although, by the way, I think that Super Bowl commercial was in the same vein. You saw a Super Bowl commercial?
I didn't see it.
He literally got on his smartphone and he's like, I spent all my money to get the spot. So what's up? Go buy my shoes. That was it. That was the whole commercial. It was like him literally talking vertical on the cell phone. They crushed.
Yeah. But nah, yeah, I had to see that. But exactly. But that makes sense. That makes sense. So there's that aspect. We're talking about innovation, right? When we're talking about like, I'm gonna make this happen. What's in my mind, I'm gonna make it happen, regardless if the world tries to stop me. That's what I like. Now, there's balance to that. Sometimes the world's trying to stop you because you're hurting people, right?
So that might have been the most innovative thing. So you're like, I'm gonna give you a better answer. Innovative,
better
inspiring
answer. I was trying to
person,
think
human being. Like you go, this human being,
right? This person
that I've met or read about.
Man, it's just a tough answer because
what person
so
has
many people
most
are human
inspired you?
Man, I gotta go with in the beginning. It was Huey Newton and the Black Panthers, man. I think that's what it has to be. Malcolm X was a big reading his book, his autobiography. I think those were kind of the big ones that were that at that time, right? That just solidified what I cared about in the world, man. There's a poet named Matthew Cuban, actually. Now I think about it, he's the one that brought me into the juvenile detention centers in LA for my first time and showed me. He didn't show me, but that showed me this is the purpose of my art. Not just being famous and feeling good about myself, but I can actually make an impact here. So I feel like, and to this day, the way that Matthew Cuban operates and walks around, I'm like, I love what he does. You know what I'm saying? He's a good dude. I was just, we're friends too, which is cool. But I would say poetry-wise, he's probably the one that inspires me the most and like pushes me the most. But I would say in the beginning, it was definitely Huey Newton, Cornel West. Well, I was reading a lot, and they just pushed me to dive into my community.
Those are serious heroes of mine as well, man. By the way, did you see Cornel West's philosophy class that he put on Masterclass? Bro, that Masterclass is insane.
Oh, you took it?
I subscribed because Cornel West did that. Like, I was like, I have to watch that, and I just watched it over and over.
He's actually the reason I got into philosophy too. Now that I think about it. I feel like literally Hope on a Tightrope.
By the way, he's running for president.
What happened?
He's running for president. I mean, I don't think that's going to go very well.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. All right, so this is kind of a final question, and then I want to kind of announce what we're doing next month and let you kind of add anything you want to add to close this out. But for the community, the people listening, the people watching, what do you think the community should focus on in the next few years that could make the biggest impact in their own efforts to add beauty and value to the world? Like, what should people be thinking about or focusing on in the next few years?
Well, when we say community, are we talking about my community? Are we talking about Tampa? Are we talking about the world community?
So sure, let's just say someone's watching, someone's here tonight. Mm-hmm. You're talking to like a neighbor, a citizen, so the community that we live within, like the community that's gonna hear this.
Yeah.
What should they be focused on?
Man, right now, proper education, getting information from the right places. But honestly, I think, my go-to is the youth, but I know that's not for everybody, right? I just do strongly believe that if we want to change the world, we got to work with our young kids. The way that our young kids are just being left behind now is scary. It's scary, man. Especially, maybe it's because we're just in Florida. Maybe that's not happening across the country, but the lack of support for education, the lack of support for programming, the lack of support for just our number one support as a society should be to help our kids, and it's getting less. It's getting harder and harder and harder. So.
I don't work with kids, but I actually do think you are in, like, some of the work within our ecosystem does, but I actually do, and more every day, believe like that is exactly right. Like, I'm like, we're doing all this stuff with like adults whose lives are shot out and this and that and the other, and it's like, that's important, that's good. But like the long-term solutions to what we're going, like my wife worked for years in the elementary school system here, and I'm like, these kids are doomed. Like, this is not a good situation, what's going on here, right? And like, if we're thinking about like the 10 years out, the 20 years out condition of our own city, I would say 100%. Like, I wrestle with this at night because I'm like spending my time doing these other things, and generally I don't think people are going to leave their kids with me. Right. Like, I'm not the guy probably, but I am more and more going, I want to support the people that are, because I do believe actually long term, I actually would say 100% I believe that with all my heart.
Yeah, no, that's real. But other than that, it's just be bold enough to create something, you know what I'm saying, and stay true to it, man, and stay true to the values that you have for it, because people are going to try to shift those values on you a lot.
Real quick, so I want to let you guys know. So next month, we actually have a mutual friend, Jalem Robinson.
Great man.
Works with, so it's Brothers United, Building Brothers Alliance. or Bubba, which is how I know him as Bubba Inc. And I actually saw him present recently. I don't know him very well, or really that at all personally, but I saw him present at he was presenting his organization at a thing I was at recently, and I was like wildly impressed with their work. And I know they're doing a ton of incredible things in East Tampa. I've been like watching from afar. I know you've connected with him. So he's going to join us next month. So that is June 20th, I think, is the third Thursday of the month.
Tune in.
And we're going to interview him. We'll have him here for the next Fireside Chat. And so I want to invite you guys to join us for that. But I want to leave like some space here. If there's anywhere you want to invite people to connect with you, support your work, anything else you want to share before we close out, just kind of give you some space here to have your way.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, thank you for being here, and
great.
thank you for the efforts that you do. You know what I'm saying? You're always working on something, and I really, really respect that, right? And the people that you surround yourself with are always good people, always solid people. So being a part of this makes me feel like I am doing something right. You know what I'm saying? So
You are doing
I appreciate
something right.
that, man. But if y'all want to get in touch more, make sure you get in touch with Grow House Tampa. You can follow that on Instagram or website. If you have young people that you want to get involved in safe art spaces for young people, you can follow Heardem Say, Heardem_Say. Like the Kanye song. No, but yeah, that is what it was started as, though. But that was back when he was not who he is today.
Did you start that, or you just started?
No, that was
Wally
B.
Wally B started it. Okay.
Yeah, he's the founder.
The old Black on Black Rhymes, and then he spun off and did Heard 'Em Say.
He did.
Yeah.
He was one of the co-founders of Black on Black Rhymes.
Yeah,
Heard 'Em Say was his own project.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so. But my name is Dennis Amadeus. You can find me anywhere online on all the things, and yeah, I think that's about it, man. Don't be afraid to reach out. We do poetry workshops. If poetry is something you're interested in and you want to get involved with it and you want to get yourself better, that's literally what Grow House is about. Grow House, growing culture, growing creatives, growing community. And so we have great stages at the top, but we also have steps to get up there, man. We have plenty of open mics. We do workshops, all kinds of cool stuff. So
I need to come out to some of those. So at the space here in Ybor, do you do open events, or the events that the community can come to, or are those like where you're doing your workshops and stuff?
we do the workshops there. The workshops are you have to sign up. In advance for the workshops. We do once a month, we do an off event. We have 2 open mics we run every month, first and third Mondays. And then, we have 3. We also do one first Saturdays. I know you said conscious.
Oh, first Saturday, yeah. We might need to come join
I didn't want to
y'all.
cross.
Yeah,
I didn't want to cross
all
that.
good, all good.
But we do for this because Gemini Fox is doing that. And then we do every Wednesday we do our workshops, and then we do one specialty show at the end of the month. Usually, typically last Saturday, but it could change. And so if you want to support any of that, or you want to be a part of any of that, that one specialty, one-off show, it's usually something different, right? It's usually something higher level. We bring in better artists, bigger platforms, or it's a poetry slam. It's competitive. That's kind of where you can go to get that kind of stuff.
Bro, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. But more than that, thank you for your life. Thank you for the work you've been putting in, the way you've been investing in yourself. Thank you for staying in Tampa, frankly.
Yeah.
No, dude, I love this city, and I love having like people that have been around that are like been here.
Yeah.
Doing the work for so long, recognize you from back in the day. I'm so grateful for you. I know we're not day to day, shoulder to shoulder, but I love you. You're a brother in the trenches out here, and I appreciate you so much, man.
I mean, appreciate you too, brother. It's good to be here. But yeah, there's still work to do, y'all. Find the people in the world that are doing the work you want to do, and put your effort in there, man. We need people in the field, not on the internet.
All right. Oh, you got a question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So you asked what your favorite books are. What about your favorite poets or poetry that you can point people towards? Like if there's a poet or 2 that you would recommend people.
Oh,
So
man.
before you answer that, let me repeat it because we got people listening that couldn't hear her.
Got you.
You talked about favorite books, but what are there in poetry? Are there your favorite poets, artists in that space? Yep.
Yeah, there's a bunch. So Slam Anderson, actually a local poet here in Tampa, was the first poet that showed me that vulnerability side. The authenticity is what makes an impact. Watching her be great, I was like, light bulb went off. Like, I need to be more honest. You know what I
By
mean?
the way, what stands out to me in your artwork that like I'm not a deeply emotional dude, but like genuinely what I feel grip me, what I would call like, ooh, I'm about to choke up in it is what resembles almost like a confession. Like you do stuff in your poetry that is like, wow, you just straight up just said it. You just like here and like I really that authenticity, that vulnerability is sincerely powerful.
No, I appreciate that. That's what I try to tell the kids too, man. It's scary, but like so many people are struggling with that, and the reason that so many people are struggling with it is because nobody wants to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's real. So I try to be honest with even the ugly sides of it. But to answer the question about the poets, so Slam Anderson, the local one that I really rock with, Ebony Stewart is incredible. She's a poet from Houston. So if y'all check her out, she's top tier poet. And then I gotta show some love to who's another poet that I really, really like and listen to. I like Rudy Francisco. He's probably one of the more popular poets. He's really good as well. But I would say Slam Anderson, Ebony Stewart, and Matthew Cuban are probably the biggest influences on me personally.
So on piggybacking on that question, I have a back in the day. So you probably know the poem. It's very famous. "If" by Rudyard Kipling.
I don't know. I don't think so.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, you don't know this. So look it up. It's. I will say for me, and I could do the whole poem. It's like deeply shaped me and been like a set point in my life. But everyone you just named are like spoken word artists, current, whatever. Is there any, to echo her question, are there any that back in the day are they any of the, you talked about Robert Frost earlier.
Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran, have you heard of
The Prophet.
The Prophet.
Yeah.
Bro, my God. The way that he writes, considering he's from, I don't know how old, I don't even know what the area, I want to say almost 15, 16, that might be way too old. But
yeah, I actually do. I can't place him either. I don't know.
But my God, the way that he writes is just so dope and profound sometimes. It's so simple and beautiful, and I love that. There's also Rainer Maria Rilke, who's a German poet.
Yep.
Same way. Now his stuff is translated. That's another reason I want to learn German. I want to read his stuff for
in the original.
But same. It's just so beautifully imagery, so beautifully poetry, and yet so real, man. Especially Khalil Gibran. The way he would write these stories about these powerful figures, and it would just show you like some of the reality behind what it is. And he would do it in a way that seems like he's telling a bedtime story. Just incredible writer, man. The Prophet is a good example of that, you know what I'm saying? Although The Prophet was more like his manifesto and ode to the world, but like if you read all of his stories, he also had a lot of really good love stories. Love poetry is typically cliche, but he has some really good love stories too. But
anyone else want to? Yeah, go for it.
When you get stuck, how do you get your creative juices flowing?
When you get stuck, how do you get your creative juices flowing?
I try to be around other people that I admire and are creative as well. I'm really lucky with Grow House because I get to go to Grow House and watch younger poets become better and better and better every week, and that's always a huge inspiration. I get to work with young kids who remind me why vulnerability and honesty is important every time they share their stories. I do have droughts, but I can come out of them when I am in the right places and make time. I gotta make time for myself. The biggest issue isn't necessarily having the inspiration, because one thing about writing every day for 2 years, you develop a secondhand nature of just writing well, kind of. And not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I could just scribble something in 5 minutes and it'll be halfway decent. You know what I'm saying? Because I wrote every day for so long. But yeah, so it's really a time, motivation, and creating a space where I can be creative in a real and authentic way. That's the problem.
You know, I've done a little bit of poetry, but like my art really growing up, I was always a visual artist. I did a lot of sketching, a lot of painting. I was gifted from a young age. I'm actually a really good visual. I don't do it at all anymore, but because it didn't pay. But like I could do quite a bit. But to this day, and all throughout that journey, a blank sheet of paper was one of the most intimidating things in the world. Like I would sit down and it was blank. And it was like whatever I begin, it was like, how do you improve upon the blank sheet?
That off topic, but there's a poet that said, I'm the type to not speak unless it improves on silence. And that was always like, wow, because I'm not that person. But I love that quote. But to your point, and to your point as well, that's exactly what writer's block is. You're not physically unable to write. You're just scared that what you're writing is going to whack.
It's not good enough. It's whatever.
The only way to get through it is to write. You have to write.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it away. I'm just show up and do the discipline.
Guess what? You got to make some whack shit. You gotta paint some whack shit, John.
Just get it out of the
Picasso
way.
has a whole room full of whack shit. You know what I'm saying? You gotta do it. You gotta push through that whackness, and you'll get to the glory on the other side.
That might be the best clip of the night. I'm gonna stay for that last little. Go ahead. You got another one? You got a follow up?
Yeah, on the tension between rigidity and flexibility, how do you determine when to continue a rhyme versus change the direction in your poetry?
Ooh, wicked.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. I think he said in
The tension.
in between the tension of rigidity and fluidity, right? Trying to figure out where do we put when do you know when a poetic device is too much or not too much? That's what you're kind of asking, in a way. Great question. So a good writer has to write with intention, right? I think when you're writing a poem, what poetic devices make sense to what the story that I'm trying to tell, right? Those are kind of things you want to think about because all rhyming could make sense for if you're trying to deliver a specific message, right? Not rhyming one time could make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like it really depends in the moment. You don't want your rhyme to sound Dr. Seussy unless you're doing it on purpose. If your rhyme is so obviously there, you know what I'm saying? Like you might be leaning a little too hard on it, you know what I'm saying? But the same with a metaphor. If your metaphor is going so deep that you lost the message of your poem, because the message is the most important, and that's what's important about editing, right? Editing, you're gonna have all kinds of sick lines, but guess what? If it don't get you to this point, then it's superfluous. You need to get them out of the poem. So it's usually through editing. I always say write your heart out. Write the fire all the way out on the page and then edit it later. You know what I'm saying? You can edit the statue. You can chip off the statue, stuff like that. But you need to get that first emotion out. And then you could be like, you know what? Maybe I rhymed too much. Maybe this metaphor about this bug is going way too deep into the poem. Like maybe I need to switch it up. That's when you start making those decisions. But in that first draft, get it all the way out. Don't even think about is this whack or not, right? Then editing, that's when you start thinking about the craft of it. You know what I mean?
Dude, thank you so much for being here, man. We're going to shut it down, let them close
Appreciate
up.
y'all.
Thank you, Blind Tiger, for having us. Y'all have a good night.